Binah, understanding. Beth Yod Nun He, a mature woman, a matron. At the head of the pillar of severity in the supernal triangle. The third intelligence is called the sanctifying intelligence, the foundation of primordial woman wisdom. It is also called the creator of faith, and its roots are in Amen. It is the parent of faith, whence faith emanates. Ama, the dark sterile mother. Aima, the bright fertile mother. Kursia, the throne. Mara, the great sea. Yehovah Elohim, Safkiel, beholder or eye of God. Elem, thrones. Sabathai, Saturn, vision of sorrow, silence, aberrance, the right side of the face. Dion, the ktais, the visika bisis, the cup or chalice, the outer robe of concealment. Three of wands, established strength. Three of cups, abundance. Three of swords, sorrow. Three of pentacles, material works. Color in Atziluth, crimson. Bria, black. Yetzirah, dark brown. Asaya, gray, flecked pink. Binah is the third member of the supernal triangle, and the task of its elucidation will be both extended and simplified, because we can study it in the light of Chokmah, which balances it on the opposing pillar of the tree. It is never possible to understand a Sephirah if we understand it apart from its position on the tree, because this position indicates its cosmic relationships. We see it in perspective, as it were, and can deduce whence it comes and whither it goes, what influences have gone to its making, and what it contributes to the scheme of things entire. Binah represents the female potency of the universe, even as Chokmah represents the male. As already noted, they are positive and negative force and form. Each heads its pillar, Chokmah at the head of the pillar of mercy, and Binah at the head of the pillar of severity. It may be thought that this is an unnatural distribution, that the supernal mother should preside over the mercies, and the male force of the universe over the severities. But we must not sentimentalize these things. We are dealing with cosmic principles, not personalities. And even the symbols under which they are presented give us insight if we have eyes to see. Freud would not have quarreled with the attributions of Binah to the head of the pillar of severity, for he has a great deal to say about the image of the terrible mother. Kether, Eye, I am, is pure being, all potential, but non-active. When a flowing forth of activity takes place from it, we call that activity Chokmah. It is this descending stream of pure activity, which is the dynamic force of the universe, and all dynamic force belongs to this category. It must be remembered that the Sephirah are states and not places. Whatever there is a state of pure, unconditional being without parts or activities, it is referred to Kether. Thus, into these 10 pigeonholes of our metaphysical card index system, we can sort our ideas of the whole of the unmanifested universe without the necessity of removing any object from its place in nature as it appears to our understanding. In other words, whatever we see pure energy functioning, we know that the underlying force is that of Chokmah. This enables us to see the intrinsic identity and type of all manner of phenomena, which at first sight appear entirely unrelated, for we learn about the Kabbalistic method to refer them according to their type to the different Sephirah, thus enabling ourselves to link them up with all manner of cognate ideas according to the system of correspondences explained on a previous page. This is the method of the subconscious mind, which it pursues automatically. The occultist trains his conscious mind in the use of the same method. Incidentally, we may note that whatever individuals are working directly with the subconscious, as occurs in artistic genius, in lunacy, and in dream or trance, this method is used. It may seem strange to the reader that the digression concerning Chokmah should be included under the heading of Binah, but it is only in the light of its polarity with Chokmah that Binah can be understood. And equally, we shall have a great deal more to add to our explanation of Chokmah now that we have got Binah to compare it with. Each of the pairs of opposites throws light on the other and is incomprehensible alone. But to return to Binah, the Kabbalists state that it is emanated by Chokmah. Let us translate this statement into other terms. It is an occult maxim which is, I believe, confirmed by the researches of Einstein, though I have not the knowledge necessary to correlate his findings with the esoteric doctrines, that force never moves in a straight line, but always in a curve vast as the universe, and therefore eventually returns whence it issued forth, but upon a higher arc, for the universe has progressed since it started. It follows then that force proceeding, thus dividing and redividing, and moving at tangential angles, will eventually arrive at a state of interlocking stresses and some manner of stability. A stability which tends to be overset in course of time as fresh forces, as emanated with manifestation, and introduce new factors with which adjustment has to be made. It is this state of stability which is arrived at by the interacting forces when they act and react and come to a standstill, which is the basis of form, as is exemplified in the atom, which is nothing more nor less than a constellation of electrons, each of which is a vortex or whirlpool. The stability thus achieved, which, be it noted, is a condition and not a thing in itself, is what Kabbalists call Binah, the third Sephirah. Whatever there is a state of interacting stresses which have achieved stability, the Kabbalists refer the condition to Binah. For instance, the atom being, for all practical purposes, the stable unit of the physical plane, is a manifestation of the Binah type of force. All social organizations on which the dead hand of unprogressiveness weighs heavily, such as the Chinese civilization before the revolution, or our older universities, we said to be under the influence of Binah. To Binah are attributed the Greek god Kronos, who is none other than Father Time, and the Roman god Saturn. It will be observed the importance attached to time, in other words, to age. In these Binah institutions, only gray hairs are vulnerable. Ability alone carries little weight. That is to say, only those who are congenial to Kronos can succeed in such an environment. Binah, the Great Mother, sometimes called Mara, the Great Sea, is of course the mother of all living. She is the archetypal womb through which life comes into manifestation. Whatever provides a form to serve life as a vehicle is of her. It must be remembered, however, that life confined in a form, although it is enabled thereby to organize and so evolve, is much less free than it was when it was unlimited, though also unorganized, on its own plane. Involvement in a form is therefore the beginning of the death of life. It is a straining and a limiting, a binding and a constricting. Form checks life, thwarts it, and yet enables it to organize. Seen from the point of view of free moving force, incarceration in a form is existence, extinction. Form disciplines force with a merciless severity. The disembodied spirit is immortal. There is nothing of it that can grow old or die. But the embodied spirit sees death on the horizon as soon as its day dawns. We can see then how terrible must the Great Mother appear as she binds free moving force into the discipline of form. She is death to the dynamic activity of Hokmah. The Hokmah force dies as it issues into Binah. Form is the discipline of force, therefore is Binah the head of the pillar of severity. When we conceive that the first cosmic night set in, the first Qabalah, or sinking of manifestation to rest, the supernal triangle found stability and equilibrium of force with emanation and organization of Binah. All was dynamic before, all was forth, rushing, and expansion. But with the coming into manifestation of the Binah aspect, there was an interlocking, a stabilizing, and the old dynamic free flow was no more. That such an interlocking and consequent stabilization was inevitable in a universe whose lines of force ever-moving curves is a foregone conclusion. And we can see, if we observe, how the Binah state was the inevitable outcome of the Chokmah state, and a curvilinear universe, that time must move through epochs in which either Binah or Chokmah predominate. Before the lines of force had completed their circuit to the manifested universe and begun to return upon themselves and interface, all was Chokmah and dynamism was restricted. After Binah and Chokmah as the first pairs of opposites had found equilibrium, all was Binah, and stability was immovable. But Kether, the great emperor, the great emanator, continues to make manifest the great unmanifest. Force flows in upon the universe, the sum of forces increased. This inflowing force oversets the equilibrium that is arrived at when Chokmah and Binah have acted, reacted, and come to a stop. Action and reaction commence again in the Chokmah phase, a phase in which dynamic force predominates, supervenes upon the static condition which is Binah, and the cycle proceeds once more. Equilibrium between the pairs of opposites being arrived at in a more complex form, on a higher arc, as it is called from the evolutionary point of view, only to be overset again as the ever-emanating ether weighs down the balance in favor of the kinetic principle as opposed to the state principle. It will thus be seen that if Kether, the source of all being, is conceived of as the highest good, as it inevitably must be, and the nature of Kether is kinetic, and its influence is forever inclined towards Chokmah, it inevitably follows that Binah, the opposite of Chokmah, is perpetual opposer of the dynamic impulses, will be regarded as the enemy of God, the evil one. Saturn, Satan, is an easy transition, so is time, death, devil. Implicit in the ascetic religions such as Christianity and Buddhism, and the idea that woman is the root of all evil, because she is the influence which holds man to a life formed by their desires. Matter is regarded by them as the antinomy of spirit in an eternal, unresolved duality. Christianity is ready enough to recognize the heretical nature of this belief when it is presented to it in the form of antinomianism. But it does not realize that its own teaching and practice are equally antinomian when it regards matter as the enemy of spirit and as such to be abrogated and overcome. This unhappy belief has caused as much human suffering in Christian countries as war and pestilence. The Qabalah teaches a wiser doctrine. To it, the Sephirah are holy, Malkut equally with Kether, and Geburah, the destroyer, with Chesed, the preserver. It recognizes that rhythm is the basis of life, not a steady forward progress. If we understood this better, how much suffering we should save ourselves, for we should watch the Chokmah and Binah phasing succeeding each other, both in our own lives and lives of nations. And we realize the deep significance of Shakespeare's words when he says, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune." It is the goddess. Come forth. Come forth, Greek goddess. Awaken. Oh, kind mother.